My guest today at the top of the hill is my neighbor, Los Angeles-based artist, former barber, former U.S. Army member, Walter Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Johnson.
Hey, former Queen Ager.
Former Queen Ager.
Ager, anyway.
How are you doing today, Walter?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling good.
Welcome
This is
to the
so
top of the hill.
exciting. I
Thank
love
you for
it.
being here. Thank you for being here. Now, Walter, you're my neighbor. We first got to know each other swimming out by the pool.
Yeah.
You've been in this building in Silver Lake since the 1970s, is that right?
Yeah.
In those 50 years in Silver Lake, things have changed a considerable amount. Tell me a little bit about the 1970s here.
Oh, the 70s. I loved it. I had been out of the closet for quite a little while. There were three great places to live as a gay man in about that time. And one, of course, was New York, which was fabulous, and they had Studio 54 and all that stuff was going on. And then, because in the 70s, everybody's beginning to come out of everything. Everybody was announcing that they were gay. It was a whole different world than it had been before. And of course, San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, and you've heard all about that and all that. But nobody talks about LA, which was fabulous and wide open and fun and inexpensive. And they had huge art galleries all along the Cienega Route. But they also had Santa Monica Boulevard, which was laughingly called Boys Town. And you could hitchhike. Nobody hitchhikes anymore. We used to be able to hitchhike. And we go up and down Santa Monica Boulevard. And there was a gay bar almost on every corner, literally. And then the discos came in, and they were wonderful. And the straight people were all going to Whiskey A Go Go, which maybe you heard about.
I've been. Yeah,
You've been there,
I've
so
been
you
there.
know
That's still around. Yeah. What was your favorite of these gay bars?
The ones that I really liked was a place called the Toy Tiger, which was like a sweater bar, and I'd go there, and I was very comfortable there, and it was fun. I liked older men.
I don't know sweater bars. What's a sweater bar?
Well, they wear sweaters, and but it's that kind of thing, sort of middle-aged. It wasn't a leather bar. It wasn't like a leather bar. They had a piano player named Rudy in there. But I also went to the other bars too. And the drunker I would get, the seedier the bar would be. So it was like Toy Tiger, very nice and respectable. Yeah. Mr. Mike's, they were all set up right around here, not very far from here.
And those would they go past 2 a.m.? Would that be an all-night kind of thing? Were there afters or?
No. Well, what happened is they would close them. They're very careful about closing them, because they would raid them sometimes. The Vice Squad would go in there. But they weren't very kind to us, except certain bars. But the ones on Main Street were all controlled by the Mafia, which a lot of people don't know, but it's the truth. Mickey Cohen had his hands in a lot of those bars, and they didn't raid those bars. They were just
Mafia kind of LGBT allies.
It's the truth, yeah. And then, of course, it was the gay Mafia, too, which was different, because we just did feathers and sequins.
You talk about the 70s as a time of a lot of people coming out in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
When did you come out?
It's one of those things that I really didn't come out as a kid. I knew I was gay. We always know that there's something different. So a lot of other people do in different ways, that you're quite fit in. My dad was in the Navy. We moved every year. My sister died when I was 5 and left me as an only child. And I had a wonderful mother who was a Navy wife and kind of ferocious in her way, but she had lost her daughter. So she was very protective of me. And my dad was never there. He was always gone. Because he was during the Second World War. He was in the Navy. And then we moved around a lot. And then we moved to Chula Vista when I was about 9 or 10. But I knew that I was different. As I always just kind of know. I didn't know what it was, why I felt so different then. And then I realized that I had a lot of pretty girlfriends. I had beautiful girlfriends. The girls love gay men. What are you wearing? They wear those shoes. They love us. And I think some of the straight guys, they basically kind of knew. And so I was pretty popular in high school because, the gay guys are putting on all the plays and doing all this stuff. Did you double date when you were in school?
I've been on some double dates.
We didn't have a lot of cars. Yeah. So in 53. And I kept looking in the back seat of the car to see what the guy in the back seat in the car was doing with the girl that he had. So you kind of know. But when I really came out was like 1953 was the year I graduated from high school.
Okay, you're 18 years old.
And I didn't know that there was such a thing as a gay bar. I didn't know there was such a thing. When I went to San Diego with a couple of my friends and we were driving around San Diego, just driving like the guys do, cruising around there. We're in this car, and the guy says to me, he says, see that bar over there? He says, that's a fag bar. And I said, where? And he says, that bar over there, that's where the fags go. And I said, oh my God. And I really didn't know that there was such a thing. And I thought, oh, I couldn't wait to get back to that bar.
You gotta check it out. Yeah,
it was
of
called the
course.
Copacabana. That's the name of the bar. I don't know, it's probably gone now. But I thought, damn. So I did. Of course, I couldn't wait to get back in that bar. And I thought, oh my God. There were like about 150 people. It was a pretty crowded bar with a piano player in the back.
All men? Were there any women? Or just all men?
Mostly men.
Yeah.
And some of the girls from the Blessed Theater were there too. A lot of them were gay. I remember them. And I got to know some of them. And I thought, my God, I died and gone to heaven because I thought, I'm not the only one. And because I really didn't know. And when they said, used the term coming out, they really did. Someone would take you by the hand almost and take you around the city, which is what happened to me, on the back of his Harley. He had a Harley. And drove around San Diego and says, that's a gay bar. It's gay after 12 o'clock. This is another place. This is a park where you cruise. This is Balboa Park, which I happen to already know about. And this is such and such a place. They literally showed you where everything was. They also showed you, don't go there. Stay away from that place. If you go over there, they'll rob you. They'll roll you there. So they taught you within one day. And then you get scared because I was pretty young. And then I had my first lover who was in the Navy. He was a sailor.
Is that whose Harley you were on the back of? Or
no, that was another guy.
Whose Harley were you on the back
remember.
of? Okay.
I can't remember his name, except that he was literally teaching me what to do and what not to do.
Showing you the ropes.
Yeah, showing me the ropes.
Did you have a first particular crush you remember from this time? Yeah.
My first lover, my first boyfriend.
Please wax poetic on your first boyfriend. I would love to hear about this.
Oh, really? Well, first of all, he was handsome as hell. And he was a sailor. And to tell you the truth, I met him in the park. I didn't meet him in the bar.
What year is this?
This would have to be 1953.
1953.
Around 1953.
So about 1920?
Yeah. And you never... It's the same with a straight. It doesn't make any difference. Your first real love affair, you feel like, I felt like I was never going to love anybody that much again. And I did. That was the way I felt. And in a way I never did because it's new. And then very gay, which adds a certain something to it because it's sort of secretive. And then later, a few months later, he went back to San Francisco to marry his fiancée. San Francisco. He was from San Francisco and finished his Navy stuff. And then I never saw him after that. And I really was brokenhearted. It was just, and I thought to myself, I can remember his name. His name was Bob Michalski. And gorgeous blue eyes, dark hair, beautiful. And I thought, I'm never going to be that much in love with anybody again. And the truth is, I never was, although there were lots of people, lots of boyfriends and stuff. But just like, and I thought, he went back to marry this girl because that's what people did in those days in San Francisco. So I'm thinking, I wonder how long it took him to, I hope that he was happy.
Live with that, yeah. Being born in 1934, having this life. Oh. You seem to be now, in 91, so confident.
I am now.
Yeah. Were you ever thinking, because of this I have to marry a woman? Or was that not, were you like, I'm too gay for that?
No, but I used to pray to want to be like everybody else.
Damn.
I want to be like everyone else. I want to be like them. And,
I'm happy you're not.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. But, and I've always said women. I love women. And I'm very attracted to them in some ways. But this is just not who I am. This is just not, it's not it for me. So I'm very glad that I didn't, because if I'd gotten involved, I would have felt very bad about involving a woman in my life and maybe having children and not being able to be fully there for them or whatever. That would have been sad for me.
So going from the 70s to the 80s in Silver Lake, what changes do you see in the neighborhood in there from when you first get here to, then both in terms of sort of the gay history of the neighborhood and just in general, we'll kind of walk through the decades. Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
What were those first changes?
I hate to talk about it because it's very depressing, but I need to talk about it. When the AIDS came in, it changed everything for all of us, not just for gay guys, but everybody. And I'd been in my 12-step program for 3 years, so I was sober because I was a mess when I was out there doing all the stuff. But when I got 3 years after I got sober, uh, there was, as you already know how it started and everything. But I would look around the room, and then someone would not be looking well. Literally, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how you got it. We didn't know what was happening. And then at our meetings, sometimes there'd be somebody, I'm not feeling well and everything. And then a few weeks later, they really begin to look bad. And then, of course, as you know, they started calling it the gay pneumonia, pneumocystis, cancer, and all this other stuff. But they labeled it immediately as the gay disease, gay influenza. But we didn't know how it started and what happened. But of course, as you know, it did hit the gay community first. The terrifying thing was not knowing what happened. I mean, how you got it. These people were beginning to die. It was horrible. And I went to Hawaii on a little vacation on my first little trip, sober. And there were 18 of us from our little 12-step program that went there. And then a year later, there was only 2 of us that were alive left.
Wow.
And it was horrendous. So what happened, of course, was the whole city changed. Some of the bars started to close down. And because it didn't just affect our community, then it began to affect other places. There was a hospice where the children's hospital is. And the 6th floor of the Kaiser was all AIDS. And the doctors and nurses, some of them wouldn't go in there. Only certain people would go in there. So the city began to change. No more hitchhiking, no more this. Places closed down, and then of course it did go into the other communities too, but not the same, because it didn't affect them the way it did our community. So it was a huge change, I thought. You have young people moving into Silver Lake now, and you see them going down the street with their baby carriage and 1.5 dogs going down the street, and they're just a lovely little, and they're very nice. And they have a different world. It's a different world than my world. I still love LA. I still love Silver Lake. I'm praying that our little place here will stay.
Top of the hill forever.
So, you know. How do you feel about it? You've been here a while. What are your feelings about it?
I've been in this place for 4 years, and I was in East Hollywood for 3 or 4 years before that. And I mean, I love the neighborhood. I like the park that we're right by. I think that's a nice place where you see all walks of life. You know, I see our neighbor Bob walking there, but I see people with kids walking there. So all ages. You know, rewinding a little bit to the 80s, you talk about the onset of the AIDS crisis in 1980. Lines up right with when you get sober. Do you? I mean, you've lived a nice long life. You know, you're 91. Do you credit sobriety with? I mean, being around still. I mean, that's you're talking about losing 16 out of 18
yeah,
people
I was
in a
46 when I came into AA. As you know, I'm 91 now, and it runs in my family. My mother was in the program. It runs in a lot of families. But yes, I credit it. And I don't. The funny thing is, I don't think I would have died of cirrhosis or the multitude of things that you get when you're an alcoholic like I was, because I really was a real alcoholic. I drank like crazy. I think I would have died in a car crash somewhere. I just get the feeling, because I used to drive in blackouts. I'd be going from here to downtown LA on the freeway in the middle of the night and not even know hardly where I was, and wake up down there in those places, down all night movie theaters and stuff. Yeah. And I just don't think I would have made it. And I don't think I would have wanted to make it. The gay life can be very lonely when you don't have children and you're not married. And
when you've lost some people.
So it gave me a family, and it gave me a place to feel wanted and needed. And when you get old, it's wonderful to have something to do. I mean, I've always been an artist, but I didn't do that much with my artwork, and I had the little barbershop and stuff. But then when I got sober, I started painting a lot, which I love to do. But that's also because of the program. Because you think, oh, I used to do that when I was a kid. I'm going to do it again. I wonder what it's like to do sober.
So you throw yourself more into painting when you get sober, but you were painting while you were drinking and stuff? You've been painting your whole life, right?
Yeah, almost, yeah. Mostly like high school. I didn't do it because I had a great desire to be an artist. I did it because I wanted the paintings. And, I think, they're expensive. Can't go out and buy, Caravaggio or something for $1. and I want a painting for my bedroom. And the first one I did was about that big, and it sucked. I thought, well, so then I got the National Geographic magazine. So I'm looking at, so here's a sexy African with a bone through his nose and an African headdress. And I thought, wow, I kind of like him. It just should have told me something. But of course it didn't. But, so I did this painting, and it really turned out to be good, and hung it up in my bedroom. You would have thought that my mother would have kind of wondered something, but she liked it too. And they were very understanding later about my being gay. It was hard for my dad because he would have liked to have had a baseball player.
I mean, your dad would have been born late 1890s, early 1900s. When was his birth?
Amazingly well. But when he got home when I was about 10 and I was already, a sissy, he was worried because he knew I'd get the shit beat out of me all the time. And I'm going to make a man out of him. But of course, this was a different time. Today he would have said, yeah, he's going to be gay. But he wanted to because he was worried about me. But I didn't know he was worried. I just thought he was ashamed of me. Like somebody gives you a baseball glove, I'm going to sew sequins on it, right? And, that's the kind of kid I was. He's just going to be gay. And then, of course, I was in the theater really young and just on my own and doing stuff like that. So later they... and they met one of my lovers later on, actually when I was in the Army.
What was that like, your parents meeting a lover of yours?
I must have been about 23 or 24 then. I was in the Army then. And my boyfriend at the time had a boyfriend in the Army, of course, more than one. And he was going back to San Diego on a trip. And I said, I want you to tell my parents that I'm gay. Because I was afraid of being blackmailed. Because in those days you could be blackmailed. And also I was in the Army, which was against the law for me to do all this stuff I was doing. So I wanted them to know. So he went back and told them, and they were okay with it. But they were upset that I didn't tell them. I didn't have the nerve to do that. I was afraid to.
Yeah.
And they were very loving and understanding. He divorced her when she was drinking. She got sober, and they sold everything. The house, he had a beautiful house in Bonita, which was really, my dad built. It was beautiful. And they sold it. And then he married the other woman, his secretary. Classic, right?
Yeah.
It was horrible for my mother, but she got herself together after a year. And then later she got properly diagnosed. In the beginning, they thought she was just whatever, she had shock treatments and stuff. So in her 60s, she went into AA and got sober. And then she stayed sober and looked really good. And then she'd run into my father once in a while and his wife, Ethel, the one that he knew her for years.
Yeah.
And then later he divorced her and went back to my mother. And then they got married again at the Navy Chapel, and I got to be there for their wedding. And my mother and I went to AA meetings together later on after I got sober.
That's nice.
It was so beautiful.
That's really nice.
So they were together for 7 or 8 more years before my dad died.
That's really nice.
He died at 84.
Yeah. Wow.
That was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I mean,
your parents reuniting, your mother's sobriety?
My parents reunited. Well, that was based on that, basically. But when my parents reunited, I thought, and then after my dad died, I took care of my mom for 15 years. She lived to be 99.
Wow. So you got some good genes.
Thank you.
So in terms of, I'm kind of fascinated, being gay in the Army.
You can ask me anything.
Yeah, you've got,
I have no secrets.
You've heard of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We're doing Duet.
I did.
I'm asking, you're telling.
That was even before that.
Yeah. So what is, there must be some fun aspects of being gay in the Army. There also must be some terrifying aspects, especially in that time. You're having fun with other servicemen.
The Army is, I wasn't really afraid of being killed, and I probably told you.
But getting beat up.
I was in
for
the
being
infantry.
Gay.
I was in the infantry. And I only weighed 120 pounds. I was really skinny, but I was very wiry because I was a dancer, and so I could do all of the stuff, all the men. And I was a very good shot, and I ended up being a gunner. Everybody had an M1 rifle. It's a 30 caliber rifle, but also I ended up with machine guns and anti-tank weapons. I love them.
What's your favorite thing you've ever shot?
Oh, an anti-tank weapon, because they used to call them bazookas, but you put them on your shoulder. They're a rocket, actually, and it takes 2 or 3 people but you put them on and they have like a bomb sight on them, and you can't miss with those things. I was an expert in everything that except for 40 caliber pistol, because I wasn't strong enough I wasn't very good with the pistol, but I was ready. And then,
That's funny, not being strong enough for the pistol, but being locked in with the bazooka.
yeah, and I wanted to go to Germany, but I didn't get to go. And because it was before Vietnam. Before Vietnam, I would not have wanted to go into Vietnam, and I was terrified they'd find out I was gay because I'm not very butch, and I was living with 300 or 400 guys in a barracks. If you wanted to find a gay bar, it would say off limits on it. There wasn't any bars hardly in Tacoma, but in Seattle there were several gay bars. So I found this gay bar because it said off limits on it, and I was wearing civvies because you have a weekend pass, and I went in there, and then I looked off limits, and then I looked in and said, "Oh, guys, it was only 3 blocks on the Greyhound that I got off of. It's got to be a gay bar." So every weekend I'd go in there and cruise and pick up somebody or whatever. So then a couple of the guys that were in my barracks were walking along there and saw me coming out of that gay bar with an off limits. So they got back and they said, "Hey, we saw Walter coming out of a fag bar." And of course, it kind of confirmed probably what they were thinking. But so then what I did was I had a boyfriend in Tacoma, John, and he was married, and he had this beautiful wife. They used to have company parties where you would take your family, whatever, to these company parties. Again, I told John what happened. Just take her name. Her nickname was Jay. Take Jay to the party. John and I got her all dressed. We did her.
Yeah.
Get her. She was wearing this beautiful Chinese sheath,
Yeah.
beautiful, like Vogue magazine. She was beautiful. We did her hair under chignon with the 2 chopsticks coming out. She was fucking Vogue,
Like bad as
beautiful,
hell.
with a slit up the side of the thing
Hell
and
yeah.
high heels on. Walked into the company parties were in the cafeteria and they take everything out. Do this. Walked in there. Every guy in the place turned to just gawk at her, and then looked at me and thought, "Oh shit. Did you see who Walter was?" Oh my God. And I could carry it off, and it was really good. I can still remember her. And I remember that moment walking in there. And then I was like, "Yeah, fuck you." I was terrified that they'd find I was gay and that I would get a dishonorable discharge. And then my father, who was a Navy man, would find that out. And of course, later he didn't know I was gay, but I wanted to serve. I wanted to be in there. I did 6 years. I did 2 in the regular and 4 in the reserves. I could have gotten out just by signing a thing on it, but I didn't want to do that.
Were you painting at all at this time? Were you painting while you were in
I did it just a little bit, but not like I'm doing now.
Okay.
Today I would have done sketches all over the place. I did do a mural in the cafeteria,
That's cool.
but I didn't like it very much.
What was that a depiction
It
of?
was supposed to be a conservative mural, and it was supposed to be the company's signature battalion thing or whatever the hell the thing was. I didn't do that. I did some interesting semi-nude men gladiator kind of thing.
They loved that.
It did. Well, some of the guys loved it. They didn't think it was gay either. They just thought it was kind of, but that's not what they had in mind. And they took it down. And then I also got to do a musical while I was in the Army for a while. I got on special duty for a while because they were doing Finnegan's Rainbow, and I could do that. And I got to be a leprechaun. Imagine that.
I'm sure your leprechaun had a great outfit. Yeah. We're jumping around time-wise a little bit, but we'll bring it back to the 1960s for a second. Because here in LA, it's before you're here, you have the Black Cat.
Oh, yeah.
You have
I didn't see that, but
you have that in 67. You have Compton's Cafeteria in 66 in San Francisco. You have Stonewall in 69. You see so much people having to, have beards. You feel, there's some change happening.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of tell me about how the late 60s felt.
God,
Was that a
I loved
hopeful
it.
time for you?
I loved it. Oh yes, I loved it. Even though I was a barber, suddenly everybody had long hair. And actually, at the beginning of my Army stuff, they were already beginning to get there because when the Beatles were
So
coming in.
good for you as a gay man, not good for you as a barber.
Yeah, and people would come into my barber shop, and dads would bring their kids into the barber shop. The kid would be like maybe 14, screaming, "Don't cut my hair! Don't cut my hair!" And we would do it. But on the streets, I loved the look, but it was a rebellion against the government and against everything. It was, and drop acid, drop out, make love, not war, that whole thing. And they were walking up and down the streets, and then they'd have what they called a love-in. But that was a protest. I don't know, we didn't have any cell phones, but suddenly they'd say, Griffith Park, Sunday afternoon, love-in. And you go down there and there'd be like thousands of people, literally thousands of people, protesting Vietnam. And that's what it's about. But it was just a big party. Everybody would be drinking cheap wine and smoking pot and taking a little acid and this. I didn't like the hallucinogenics very much because I had a friend that died from it. He went off of a roof at Venice Beach before I came into the program. And I wanted to, but then when I saw some of my friends had bad trips, what they used to call a bad trip, and I thought, Walter, you're a little crazy. And
Did you ever have a bad trip?
I had stuff going on when I was drinking, but it wasn't from acid.
You never had a bad psychedelic?
I didn't have a bad psychedelic. I wanted to. I wanted to take it,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I smoked grass.
You never tried acid?
No, I was afraid to.
Did you ever try mushrooms?
No.
No.
I'm afraid to.
Just booze and pot? That was
I
it?
smoked booze and pot, but I had some hallucinations drinking with just booze and pot sometimes. And I remember one time I thought it was Chinese. The truth. I don't know.
Tell me about being Chinese. What was that like?
Well, I was looking in the mirror, and then I see this Chinese person staring back at me, and then I meditated on it, and I thought, I was very sure I felt like I had been Chinese in another life.
Okay, past life kind of thing.
Not somebody famous or anything, but like I felt like I was a very old Chinese man, and I regressed into that. And I still feel that way kind of sometimes, that I have
past lives.
I sort of like the idea that maybe we had former lives.
Reincarnation's kind of a nice
getting
idea.
into my whole thing about my beliefs is that we're all energy and that it keeps going. Energy does. I don't need to get into all that.
No, that's you're sort of a school of thought of like reincarnation. Is that something
I
that
believe that energy never leaves. That's my personal belief. I also believe in Buddhism, and I take from Christianity things that I think that I like, that I do. And in my program of AA, we believe in a program of kindness.
So the late 60s, does that seem like, when you look at, nine full decades, does that feel like in America where you were, that's when the most momentous change was happening? Or are there other pockets? Does it all feel different? It's not comparable to one another? How do you feel about the late 60s?
The biggest change is right now.
Biggest changes right now. Is that
There's
social media? Is
to
that
me,
Trump?
there's no comparison, because I don't want to get too much into the Nazi stuff, but to me, because I remember the Second World War. I was just a kid, but I remember all of that and the concentration camps and stuff when people were coming out of them. And we're back into that again. It's Nazi Germany. To me, this is just my opinion.
No, I mean, we're here to hear your opinion.
You know, am I saying that? But I see I see it in LA too. We've changed. And we need to demonstrate and come back with it. But the 70s was going up against the establishment too because of Vietnam, but that was not as bad as because we didn't. But we also but you can also compare when they were turning the dogs loose on civil rights advocates when they were doing the sit-ins and they turned those dogs loose on them. It was almost the same, but not as bad. They weren't shooting people. So now we have a similar situation. A little bit different, but worse. Because now they're doing secret stuff where they're moving into people's places and taking people at night. And
people are just disappearing. They're just getting sent off to prisons in foreign countries. That's what the Nazis did. Dreadful.
They did the same thing, exactly. And the gay community had to wear pink triangles on their sleeves. And now it's like, and some of those ICE are hitting, that's a gay community that they were hitting in Minneapolis. That's very gay there. And the one that they shot was a gay woman. Her wife was there, but it's not just the immigration thing, and it tears me apart. It just breaks my heart because people like my dad and myself that served to protect their country so that people would have the freedom, and now they're going after the press.
Yeah.
People
in America are being asked for their papers. They're going into homes without warrants.
Yeah, they just arrested, what's his name? I've forgotten his name, the gay reporter.
Don Lemon.
They just arrested him.
Yeah.
For going into a church and reporting what was going on in the church. Anyway, that's kind of sad.
For sure. So
but I'm an optimist.
Yeah, you're an optimist.
I live my life in gratitude, and I am very up person. I do it by nature. It's a part of me, but I also work at it. Every morning I get up and I say thank you. That's my
It's a good way to
prayer.
live.
Every morning I go out on the balcony and I say thank you. And I'm grateful to have lived this long because I've learned a lot in the last few years. I'm not afraid of dying. That's okay. But I've learned a lot. And what I've learned is to be kind and to do the simple things. As I keep saying when I go to my little meetings, sometimes I say, I can't stop a war, but I can say good morning. And I literally go out there in front of my little meeting, and I stand there and say good morning to everybody. And I can do that. I can go to the park, which you go to, and I can say hi to people even if they don't say something back. Those are the things that we can do. The stuff that's going on out there on the streets with people that are acting out, that are sick. Those Nazis, they're very sick. If someone could have taken some of those kids that are doing that and put their arms around them and held them and told them that they were wonderful and it's okay and that they're going to be all right and love them, they wouldn't be, my belief is they would not be out there doing what they're doing and bullying people and doing stuff. And some of them are badly damaged. Their brains are damaged too, but they wouldn't have been doing that. I really believe that. So we need to get hold of the kids today.
You got to be kind of
Put our arms
weird
around
to
them and
become
love
an
them.
ICE agent. You probably,
Yeah,
hurt people to the billionth degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be kind, do the simple things. Love that.
Yeah.
You're so sweet.
Oh.
Real quick, were you in this building during the 1994 Northridge earthquake?
Yes.
Give me the skinny on that.
Scared the shit out of me. So if there's an earthquake, duck and cover. So don't do what I'm going to do. Help! I'll be hanging onto the cheap jewelry trying to get out of there. And
Leave the cheap jewelry. You can get more of that on Amazon.
no, not like this.
The whole fit's fantastic.
I go over the top when I do the newcomers meeting at my 12-step because I love to scare the newcomers so they see me standing outside with this stuff on.
Are you a sponsor to many people?
I only sponsor a few people now. I do sponsor people still. I used to sponsor a lot. And I have to curb it a little bit now.
I imagine everyone wants you as a sponsor.
No. And 91 years old. Are you serious? No. But
9 decades of wisdom.
But back in the day, I did sponsor a lot of people because I used to run around and pretend like I knew something. And, the longer you're around, the less you know it's the truth. It's the truth. And I love to make people laugh. And sometimes I can go in there and lighten them up a little bit so that they understand that it's going to be okay because I just lost one of the kids down there 2 weeks ago. He was just sitting next to me, and I knew he was deeply troubled, and he'd been with us for a couple of years, and he was brilliant. But you know something? He couldn't get it. He just couldn't because of the disease of alcoholism and drug, and he was in such denial about it too. I couldn't. Well, not me. The program couldn't quite get through to him because of mostly drugs. Fentanyl's deadly.
Yeah, that wasn't around when you were partying, so
no
risk to that.
No,
Being terrifying.
They had a few designer drugs. They had amyl and stuff like that when you were in the clubs and stuff. But I don't take anything that affects me from the neck up unless it's a horny truck driver. I just don't.
That's awesome.
And with that,
Walter Johnson. Be kind, do the simple things.
Be kind.
I love that. This guy's a legend.
That's true.